Hello and welcome to the Gold Goats and Guns podcast for January 10th, 2026. My name is Tom Luongo. We have a lot to talk about, and we do, and we will, because whenever this guy's in the house, lots of talking happens. Vince Lanci's in the house today. Vince, how are you?
Good, Tom. Thanks for having me. This should be fun. This should be a good one.
I know that you've been under the weather. I was hoping to get this done a couple of days ago, but you needed a couple of days to get to the point where you were human again. So I'm glad to see that you're
Not visually, but you can hear my voice.
yeah, dude, it takes a couple of days. Like, you know what I mean? I try not to I try not to abuse myself too hard when I'm being a bachelor, and I usually fail. So the wife is still back in Florida
I
for
know
that
you
stuff.
haven't killed
So
anyone yet or blown anything up yet, right?
there's no people where I am for me to kill. Like I have to do my executions on Twitter.
Which is why
Um,
you've been murdering fucking social media. Exactly. I get it. I get it. All
so
right.
I've been wanting to get this together with you for about the last week since silver started exploding and
Right, right.
finished exploding, and I know you have some complicated thoughts about where the market is headed or gonna head or whatnot, and we're past the annual close, we're past the into the new year. So um I'm not really quite sure what we should talk about first, because there's, as we talked about in the pre-roll, like we always do, there's about 17 different angles that we could talk the silver market with, in the same way that you could talk about Venezuela in 17 or 18 different ways. Silver has a lot of things happening within it right now. So
Well, why don't we start with because this is how we started intersecting again over the last week. Why don't we start with the silver as the point of a spear with regards to dovetailing out to China, India, and then
hmm,
Great Britain, which is going to tie into everything that is your specialty, and that might, because really it's just silver as a symptom of what's of the bigger picture, right?
right, correct.
All right, cool. All right, so this didn't all start, but I guess this is an update on what we talk about all the time. But 2 weeks ago, a couple of things have been happening. Right? What happened last week or so was the U.S. had been, this is before Venezuela, right before Venezuela, the U.S. had been, I gotten reports from military people in the Caribbean and from refiners in the U.S. that the U.S. was pulling a lot of Latin American silver concentrate into the U.S. So we were pulling in metal for refinement. And then we announced we're going to own 40% of a smelter built domestically,
Mhm.
and then I get a report from Chris Marcus at Arcadia that a miner in Latin America was contacted by China of someone who was virtually panicking to buy silver at $83 from him in Latin America when it was trading at $74 elsewhere. So the silver spread blew out. Silver started to rally even more. You've got a Chinese national in Latin America trying to buy silver. You've got China, you've got the US building a smelter, you've got all these things, plus China, which has been bleeding silver, people are pulling silver out of there again, decides to restrict exports starting January 1st, which they've done. So
Right.
when you look at that, I mean, it seems like this is about silver, but it's not. It's about silver as just, look, silver is a very easy to identify, high beta mineral that matters. Everything else matters more. Lithium, oil, what have you. But we could see what's going on in silver because the price just fucking completely dislocated.
Right.
Then India comes into Latin America. This is another thing from Chris Marcus. India comes into Latin America and they're looking for silver because China is taking it all. And
Mm,
so, and then all this is happening, like it all culminates, my information flow culminates the day before we fucking throw Maduro out of Venezuela. And I go, oh shit, we really are excommunicating everyone from Latin America that's not us. And then from there, it became easy for me. And I hooked up with you again on it. And I'm
mm,
like, oh shit, Greenland's next. Um, uh, uh, doesn't Venezuela have a lot of gold? Where did it go? Didn't they
right.
send some silver out? Like, what the hell is going on down there?
Mm,
That we really are just like in. It feels like a whole timetable got pushed up.
yeah, yeah.
That's what it feels like to me. So
Well,
anyway, that's
I
my
know that's a
background. This goes right into what you're going to talk about. So that's
well,
that's
what
what I'm
I was going to
talking about.
say is that your point about the the acceleration is very important. One of the things when you step back and you look at the Trump administration and you look at Trump's season two, the pace has to accelerate.
Right.
So we've had all the early, Monster of the Week episodes that we've wandered around a bunch and done all that stuff. But now we're into the midway, midpoint of season two, or whatever you want, however you want to put it. Now the storyline needs to start, emerging quickly and
Right.
get people right on the hook if you're thinking about this like an arc of the season of television. It was obvious to me and others that he needed to start pushing the pace and pushing the pace hard, and which is what he's done the minute we come into the calendar year 2026. So China puts up the export ban on silver. Trump exfiltrates Maduro, brings him into protective custody, parades him around New York, the whole nine yards. Like all of that was the most glorious, like trolling of all of Trump's enemies that you ever saw. Like
Yeah.
he was literally trolling them all. So you have that, and I think it's very important that you think of it in that respect, that this is about pushing the pace. This is
Right.
about accelerating the demise of the
Old
the
order.
old world, yeah, the old post World War II order.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
funny. I was talking to Blaine Holt the other day, and actually I brought this up last night when I was talking with Alex Craner and Susan Kokinda for Crypto Rich. I left them with this after 2 hours of conversations. I left them with this idea that going back to the end of World War II, that FDR told Churchill flat out in no uncertain terms, we didn't fight this war for you to reestablish the old British system.
Right. Right.
And we're now living 85 years downstream of that. And it tells you at that point, okay, maybe the Brits did kill FDR, and then maybe they did kill Patton, and maybe like
Right.
all of this stuff is not, it's not provable, but we also know that this is aimed directly at the Bush cartel. I mean, clan,
Well,
that it's, and so many other things. So
can I add one
silver,
color
yeah,
to
but
that?
I was gonna say, but silver is a part of this, and in order to unravel all that stuff, you got to strike the root, which is at the LBMA.
Forget metals. You said something that I think is really important. When FDR said to Churchill, just to bring that point back, we did this for us, we didn't do this for you. And the first thing that popped in my head right away before you started, making your comments was, yeah, but they kind of hung on pretty good anyway. Meaning we may have won it for us, but I think on some level, America is a bunch of Anglophiles, and it's like, okay, we'll do the euro dollar through you, and we'll make England still involved in markets. But I think I feel like there's two things going on here, and one of them is we're finishing what wasn't done at the end of World War II.
Bingo.
That's your point, and my point is, it's not my point, but the corollary is China's looking at it through a different lens, saying, "Oh, our turn," and
Mm.
that's where we are.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's very clear that China thinks that way,
Yeah,
and I think that China is going to get a rude awakening, and I think this is part of the reason why the United States, why Trump has made these major military operations that only the United States could pull off. I mean, again, I go back to the bombing of Fort Al. We could have sent the B-2s in from Diego Garcia or Bahrain or wherever, they were right there. We didn't have to
right,
go. We had to fly that wing halfway around the world from Missouri.
right,
Okay. We didn't have to do that. We did that to remind everybody we can fly an entire wing of B-2s escorted by F-35s, escorted by blah, and all the logistics
right,
halfway around the world. And nobody knew a fucking thing about it, except for the people who saw the damn planes leaving the airbase in Missouri. They knew. And then the Iranians knew.
right,
Same kind of thing with Delta Force going in, and in 3 minutes and 45 seconds, having Maduro and his life in and out. No, no bullshit. Two pump chump, get out.
right,
And like, and that's, you have to realize that these messages are very important at this moment in time, because we've been gaslit for years and years and years that Americans military doesn't know how to fight. We get involved in these forever wars. We get involved in these stupid police actions. All of this stuff going all the way back to McNamara and in Vietnam and everything else, trying to clean up the French's bullshit in Vietnam and all of this stuff.
right,
The politicians and the generals and everybody, I think, our entire lived experience as people of, we are now in our mid 50s, or in my case, going to be my late, I technically now will be in my late 50s, in about a month.
I'm with
Um,
you.
that our lived experience is that America has degraded over time, that
Right.
the degradation of our military ability and power and has, mirrored our economic hollowing out and cultural degradation and everything else. What I've always argued was that that's not just not the case if America decides to defend itself against the real enemies, and those real
Right.
enemies, yeah, well, they may be Russia and China in a bigger sense, in the civilizational or global sense, but in the interface between domestic politics and
The cancer that makes it hard for us to fight the other enemies. Yeah, exactly.
that has to be fought, and that's a big one. And if we decide to fight back against that, ain't a fucking thing the Brits or the French or the Germans or the Portuguese or the Dutch or any of these fucking inbred assholes can do about it. And we can just and we can literally run the freaking board on all of their bullshit in the Sahel region of Africa, the Middle East, Central Asia, Central and South America. It's all bullshit. And
Yeah.
and we have consigliaires, and we have capos all through the American oligarch system that had various regions under their control. Clinton's had Central Asia, one under Hillary Clinton. The Bushes have had Central and South America. Blah 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 blah.
Right. Well, I mean, your point about, I didn't think of that. The point about the flex, meaning, I mean, just looking at it from what's happened from Biden to here over the last 8 years, over the last 6 years, the U.S. has definitely made it clear that it was no longer going to be the police force of the world. That's part of that is because the BRICS don't want us there because they don't want dollars and they think they don't want. And the other part of it is that we can no longer responsibly spend the money on keeping that force policing everyone else while at home we're deteriorating
Mm-hmm.
in many ways. So uh, mishandled as it was, the pull out of Afghanistan was the beginning of that. And
Mm-hmm.
Afghanistan pull out, and then Trump continued it. And now we're picking battles again, but they're domestic home front battles. So the reason I'm plugging into what you're saying is because uh, flying the jets from Missouri to Iran was a flex. It's like, but see, but I didn't think of it that way. I just said, okay, we just flew. But that's the I am American centric in that effect. So what we're saying is, listen, just because we're pulling out of your backyard doesn't mean we can't go into your backyard anytime we want. So yeah, that makes sense, and
Don't get any fun. Just don't get any funny ideas. Reports of our demise are greatly exaggerated.
yeah, exactly. It reminds you of something else. I had a neighbor about 15 years ago, and his name was Roman Balthazar, and he's deceased now, unfortunately. But Roman was a great guy. He was a Czech national, and he was in a concentration camp during World War II, and then he was behind the Iron Curtain, and he got out one night. And the reason I bring him up is because as the young neighbor, the young new homeowner neighbor, and he was the older Czech guy, I would say, he would tease me like, so because he knows I was an apartment liver. He's like, oh, so when's the superintendent going to mow your lawn? That type of shit. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
the main point that he made was that kind of made me think about it was uh, about what you're saying in terms of where we are, like our demise is greatly exaggerated. I would say to him in a conversation, I would just say something like, "This really sucks. America really sucks. I'm complaining about something, taxes or something like that." And he goes, "No, you have no fucking idea. You have no idea how." And I'm like, "Okay, here we go. I'm the old immigrant. Yeah, I know how hard it is. I've heard it from my grandfather." He's like, "No, no, no, no." He goes, "Vince, don't get me wrong. America's getting way worse than it was when I first came here." I go, "Yeah, that's my point." He goes, "You don't understand, but America's at number one, and number two is fucking generations lower. You could fall fucking 100% and still be better than everyone else." He goes, so while you feel your totality of power slipping domestically, the world fucking they can't kiss your feet, and he meant that militarily. He meant that
Mm-hmm.
law wise, constitutionally.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yes.
he's like, you have the rule of law, and he, he kind of educated me in a civics way that I hadn't. Anyway, the point is, I think the rest of the world starts to believe the shit that I was believing back then.
We all go through this. Everybody who gets like gets sucked into the libertarian psyop orbit.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, there's a great many things about libertarianism that I like and I still agree
Mhm.
with. The problem is now we're going to deal with the purity spiraling aspect of it and how it's been used to take the brightest minds of a generation or two and have them arguing about dumb shit when they should be out there building businesses
Oh
and
yeah.
taking control of the reins of government and doing everything else, and they're all sitting around arguing about how many Rothbards can dance on the head of a fucking pin.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm not interested in that anymore. Right? It's that part of it. And you run into these people all day long on Twitter because they need to win an argument in order to validate their pathetic passivity.
Right.
That's what they do.
Right.
Right. So if you've ever been to a Libertarian Party meeting, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Everybody who's, yeah, I know, I've done it, I've been there, I've tried doing it. I'm like, this is just dumb. This is idiotic. I'm moving on with my life. I have better things to do, like watching paint fucking dry. That easy disillusionment that comes with that
Right.
when you take smart people and they can see the pattern recognition, they can see the arc of history, and you just give them a taste and then say, hey, why don't you pull a Malthus and extrapolate that out to the next 50 years? And then all of a sudden they're immediately demoralized to the point of, oh, all I'm supposed to do now is buy gold and wait for the collapse.
Right. Right. Right.
No,
Exactly.
dude, you're supposed to fight for your fucking
Right.
civilization. You're supposed to be Ed Norton at the midpoint turn of Fight Club. Well, not. I mean, you are Ed Norton at the middle of midpoint turn of Fight Club when he was disillusioned and he was checked out, and then he decided to fight and he didn't know what to do, so he beat up Jared Leto's Angel
Right.
because I just wanted to destroy something beautiful. But he was angry at every panda that wouldn't fuck to save its own species.
It wouldn't fuck to save itself. Yeah. 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 That's a great line.
And so, and that's very complicated and unbelievably difficult psychology in that moment.
Right.
It's so brilliantly right. And I'm not, don't get
No,
me
no,
wrong, I've been with
that's
that guy,
actually
and I've
good.
been with
You
that guy.
could see Ed Norton as being a disillusioned libertarian, or someone more like myself that would be a neo-Keynesian who woke up, and in waking
Right.
up, you just decide to destroy something beautiful just to do it.
Right. Or because you're like looking at it going, oh, I have to drive myself through the 5 stages of grief of my own disillusion, and I have to rebuild
Right.
myself. Right. And that rebuilding process, I'll be honest with you, for me, I mean, I think the nadir of of this for me was really around 2012 or so when they clearly stole the primaries away from Ron Paul and handed the nomination to Mitt Romney.
I wasn't as plugged into, and I just wasn't plugged into that. I was more worried about how much
Sure.
money I could make, because I was a trader. I
Yeah.
was like, oh,
Yeah.
whatever.
Hey man, and that was another psyop, to worship money, not to worship culture, not to
Right.
worship the future. And hey man, like I don't say that with any amount of malice. Like
Yeah.
we've all been
Well,
sucked
that's
into
the American
this thing. This
way.
is a general,
Exactly.
but this is a generalized problem. And for all of his bullshit, Oliver Stone wasn't wrong with Gordon Gekko, making Gordon Gekko into a villain.
Right.
um you know Greed is good. Greed is good to a certain extent, but it's to what end are you going to take that greed and then turn it into something constructive and build society with it and build a
Right,
civilization
right.
with it?
Yeah. Oliver Stone definitely has had a way of phrasing it that, like that movie, as an example, you could view it as he was being ironic, or he was being
Mm,
straightforward, or he was being paradoxical. I don't know. Well, I don't know what was
right,
going through his head when he saw it.
right.
Yeah, when he wrote it. I agree.
Yeah. So, bringing this all back to silver and bringing it all back to the precious metals, which is really why people tune into us doing the job owning thing. When you focus on it that way, you realize that silver is at the heart of breaking everybody's disillusionment.
Yeah,
Silver's been the ultimate demoralization tool for people in that orbit
right.
for so long. Silver and gold, the price suppression schemes, but especially silver, because silver's obviously should have been worth a fuckload more ages ago,
Right.
but they've run 15-year.
It's trading $80 now and no one cares. Like, well, then
Right,
that's the point. That's the point. Like, people are not
right.
pulling their hair out with it trading $80, because you know what? Like, I think what's actually crazy to to take this from silver to energy, oil under $60 is fucking crazy. It's crazy
Hmm.
because it was trading $50, $60 in 2003. So here we are 23 years later, and oil is like basically unchanged. And that's crazy. And they're definitely suppressing oil now. It's like, okay, we'll let metals go up as long as we have cheap oil. And I think that's where they are. And that's what the Venezuela attack is as well.
No, so expound on that. That's a good point. I mean, I get it, but I want you to like take the audience through it a little bit. Now, take that through.
Wait, through what, Tom?
Well, through why they're going to let oil, why
Oh
they're
yeah,
going to
yeah,
let
yeah,
gold and
yeah.
silver
No, I know. I'm fucking around. I was like,
versus
oh shit.
versus.
I thought you were supposed to talk then. All right, so I have some connections in the Caribbean. They used to be deeper, but I still have them. And in the O's and tens, I would be in St. Kitts semi-frequently. And during that time, there was an increasing footprint of Chinese nationals coming in to Guyana, to Trinidad, any place that had oil, and they were financially colonizing it for the Belt and Road. And so, silver, 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 which is fun to talk about, but this is about oil. It's about natural gas. It's
Mm,
about energy in the end. And I think, silver is just a thing that we can see, but the reality of it is 5 years from now, none of that Venezuela oil is going to be going to China unless they give us lithium.
mm.
And speaking completely as an American patriot, just plugging into the concept here. And I mean this. This is my old neo-Keynesianism reasserting itself here, just for the moment.
Hmm.
If you're going to tell me that a natural resource is going to determine an economy, then you have been paying attention to the last 200 years with the Industrial Revolution and what humanity has done to advance itself. And so
Hmm.
the United States wants to help people. But if you're going to tell me that you're going to hold us back, I'm talking to China now, right? If you're going to tell me, China, that you're going to restrict us from growing by holding off on rare earths, if you think that's going to stop us, you're an idiot. Because on a level playing field, if neither of us have access to rare earths, or we don't have access to your rare earths and you don't have access to our oil or our silver or our copper or whatever else is, if you put it on a level playing field, I will take the American way over any other nation's way because of the entrepreneurial concept, because of the innovation involved.
Hmm.
Now it sounds trite, but it's fucking true. And
Makes sense.
I can point out why what I just said isn't just bullshit in economic analysis. You see, we take oil and we make a car engine to drive a car, whereas other countries take oil and make Vaseline petroleum jelly. So it's what benefits mankind more, lubricant for Vaseline or lubricant for an engine. So, what I would say is nations that have ideas and use those ideas with commodities on a level playing field will outdo other nations. Now, I'm not saying China is not innovative. They have a reputation of not being innovative, but they are innovative. People don't know what the fuck they're talking about. But I am saying
Hmm.
that if you make the playing field level, you have no oil, we have no rare earths. I'll take us in that battle. I'll take us in that battle
Sure.
for multiple reasons. One, because the dollar is still the global reserve currency. We have the luxury of that. Number two, and this is where I really this is a geopolitical, geoeconomic comment that I want to make. When someone says to me, well, Vince, you're just being a patriot. You think America can innovate its way out of anything. I'm like, no, I don't. I don't think we can innovate our
Mm,
way of everything. I think we've been playing that we can for so long that we almost have lost that ability and we need to get that back. What I can say to
mm,
you with 100% hard economics analysis facts is this. There are two types of economies in the world when it comes to natural resources. One type of economy pulls it out of the ground and sells them. Another type of economy pulls it out of the ground and innovates with them. The type of economy that pulls it out of the ground and sells it is an authoritarian, is a backwards economy, is a strongman economy, is a mafiosa economy is essentially what Saudi Arabia has been, what they're getting out of now. And those economies don't innovate. They sell what they pull out of the ground to continue to have their standard of living, to buy a new Ferrari. Whereas the US, even though we've got people, we've got a whole oligarchic class that does that, the US pulls the oil out of the ground and says, what can I do to add value to the oil? I'm going to make something that people don't have access to. I'm going to have a pride and workmanship, and then I'm going to sell it. So, all right, I pulled the oil out of the ground. I invented a refinery. I invented a catalytic cracker. I have gasoline now to put in the car that Henry Ford made to do this, to do that. And the point is, eventually, what I'm describing here manifests. I mean, this is fact. This isn't an opinion. What I'm describing here is that in the economy that pulls the oil out of the ground and sells the oil, which is essentially what Russia has become until recently, that's what Russia is, an exporter of natural resources, most of their economy. And the US, which is really an exporter of software services, I guess, right now. But the point is, if you innovate with the raw material, you will make more money. You will make the pie bigger for everyone. And the nation that doesn't innovate will be a fucking caveman in 100 years. And so I say that, and I'm being now back to, I say that if you look at an economy like China's, I'm talking about China here now, that until the last 50 years has been a strongman economy, pulling resources out of the ground, selling them to make ends meet. They recognize with the Gobi Desert fucking taking over the whole nation, they recognize the lack of planting that they have to become innovative. And they've become innovative. But every other BRICS country is a fucking Yahoo that's pulling shit out of the ground and selling it. And if we go head to head with China, China has the albatross. I mean, if we think Europe sucks, imagine those economies around China's neck if China has to police them, protect them, and bolster their economy. So this is my patriotic spiel, and it's rooted in economics. We, other countries like us, will innovate with raw materials. Maybe it's flying to the moon the point is that that's why I'm long gold and long the US.
No, I agree. And then it makes perfect sense then now that Venezuela has been taken out. Mexico is clearly on the list. Trump is trying to work with Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico, and she's clearly having to come out and say, look, I'm trapped by the cartels, no different than Maduro, no different. And I want to make the argument, no different than the Ayatollahs, than the mullahs in Iran.
Well, I feel that she's giving him the pretense.
Yeah, well,
I'm trapped by the cartels, which is a license to fucking come in.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But Mark Carney in Canada is doing the exact opposite.
What's he doing?
Canada is now the hostile actor on our northern border.
Oh, really?
That needs to be kicked out of the hemisphere. Yeah, we'll have that conversation in a minute, Vince. But all of everything you just described is very important and ties right back into Venezuelan oil. And I'm going to continue to make this point for the people in the audience about oil itself. Oil is like, I say this all the time. The United States is not a monolith. For those people outside of the United States, and you're looking in through the prism of news, the United States looks like a monolith. I got news for you. There's 15 different cultures in the United States. Hell, there are more types of barbecue in the United States than there are countries in the EU. Okay, that's how culturally different we are as a country, and the factions and the regionalization and everything else. Same thing with Iran. Same thing with Europe. I mean, hell, it doesn't matter what you're talking about. All politics is local at a certain level. Well, I got news for you. The more you dig into a particular thing like that, a concept, America, this, that, everything else, got news for you. Oil is the most hideously complex of the commodities. Silver and gold, they come in two types, oxides and sulfides.
Right.
90% of them. Maybe some carbonates, right? We're talking about
but oil needs to be replenished all the time. It's energy.
But oil is everything from ultralight fracked shale oil, which is more natural gas liquids than it is even oil, if you know what that phrase natural gas liquids even means, all the way to the tar that literally is in the ground in Venezuela that you have to pump naphtha into the ground to dilute it, okay, to be able to get it to flow and come up a column to get it out of the ground. Those, as a chemist, I can tell you that They mean light in terms of energy. The more carbons you add to the chain, the more energy in the carbon chain. So there's more energy in propane than there is in ethane, than there is in butane. Ethane, 2 carbons. Propane, 3 carbons. Butane, 4 carbons. Nonane, 9 carbons. These are all straight chain hydrocarbons. You can look that stuff up on Grok or Wiki or whatever you want. This is like organic chemistry 101, folks. And I absolutely recommend everybody go watch some classes on YouTube about this. It's not hard. Let's break it down simply. There are about 6 grades of fuel. There's number 1 fuel, gasoline. Anything lower than that is JP4 and jet fuel, which is even higher, which is even more volatile. The lighter the fuel, the more volatile it is, the higher the vapor pressure, the more you can spark it, right? Why gasoline you can light with a spark, but diesel fuel you can't light with a spark. You have to use compression to get it to get the activation energy to get it to combust. That's number 2 fuel. Number 2A fuel, on-road diesel fuel, what you put in your cars, right? Number 2B fuel, that's off-road diesel. That's slightly heavier. So gasoline runs basically from C3 to C9, right? In terms of carbon chains, with a maximum right around 7, 8, which is where they like tune it. 2A around C10, 2B, C11, C12. And then we get into number 4, heating fuel, number 5, ship fuel, and number 6, bunker fuel. And what is bunker fuel? It's cleaned up crude oil. They literally just pull the water and some of the sediment out, push it through literally a sediment filter. Like, you know how you guys pan for gold? Same fucking concept. Get the rocks out, get the water out, put it in the fucking boiler, and move a ship with it. And it's the only thing it's any good for.
Right.
Number 6, that Venezuelan oil is really only good for one thing and one thing only, because you have to tune a refinery to get those out. So you go to fractionally distill this oil, you're going to get very little C3. You're going to get a whole lot of C12, a whole lot of C20, right, and a whole lot of C25. Everything above 18, folks, or 20 you know them colloquially as waxes. They're solids at room temperature. Okay. Right. All right. So now start doing I may have the numbers slightly off. The waxes may start at 18 or 16 or whatever the fuck it is. I'm going back to when I was in organic chemistry ages ago. But understand that that's what we're dealing with, and refineries are tuned to the oil that they use as a feedstock.
Yes.
This is very fucking important. Really fucking important. And so the implication should be obvious here, folks. With the reason the United States has gone after Venezuela, and the reason why Canada is next, because Canadian and tar sands are similar, is that we want to control the rise of China's geopolitical ambitions outside of its sphere of influence by controlling most of the heavy sour crude that they can get their hands on. Now, the Russians have plenty of heavy sour crude. So do the Saudis. There's not a lot of equatorial sources of heavy sour crude. Venezuela is one of them, right? Saudis have some, yada, yada, yada. But mostly the Saudis produce light sweet and medium sour. So they produce stuff that's really good for diesel fuel and heating oil, right? The Russian, same thing. Russian Urals grade is a medium sour grade, right? It can be blended with some other heavy sour stuff, and then we use that, and that's what's been, we were using that in the Gulf Coast refineries that were designed to refine the Venezuelan crude.
Right. Chevron is very big in that. Chevron has a lot.
So this is Chevron's thing, right? This is the whole thing about Chevron. So my point here is that this is what Trump is. This is right. I'm piggybacking what you said. We're going to stop you from having oil, but it's a particular grade of oil that's important. Right. Well, who gives a shit if China wants gasoline? You don't run a ship navy, a littoral navy, a blue water navy on gasoline.
That's so true. Like the U.S. is really the country that uses gasoline. Everyone else uses diesel.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's gas, diesel. I'm talking about you want to if you want to have China patrol if you want them to have their sphere of influence and bottle them up in that sphere of influence, okay, right, then you put them on a residual poison fucking drip feed, or you control the spice to, and say you can only have so much of this. So when Hegseth came in after we snatched Maduro, and he said, we're going to rebuild Venezuela's oil industry. We're going to get back up to full production, 5 million barrels a day. That's going to take a decade.
Right.
And Venezuela, the United States, and China are going to benefit from this.
Right.
But that's us saying, yeah, you'll get your 1.7 or 2 million barrels a day that you need. Okay. But you're not going to get 5 million and build an entire strategic petroleum reserve of this heavy
Right.
sour stuff that you can use to fight World War III with against us with. No, no, no. And you better get your asses out of Vancouver because that Canadian oil is ours. And that's putting Mark Carney on fucking notice. And that's why we're going to take Greenland, because Europe doesn't get to have that oil either, or
Right.
the gold or the silver or any of the other stuff. Greenland
Right.
is the key to the maritime trade routes connecting Europe with literally the rest of the fucking
Well,
world.
that's the Arctic Circle. We need to, right.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
also a
and
counter.
just the northern sea route between Canada and England and the English
I know.
Channel
It's
and
exactly.
the Spanish and French coast.
I just want to add something because you brought up something that I think people are discussing and probably don't have all the information on. And I'm not going to say that I have all the information on it, but I have more than most. There are people like Bryn Kelly who know more about it. There's no one else in energy that I would talk to about this other than Bryn. Everyone else in energy is really not up to her snuff. But this is your comment about the oil, about the Venezuelan oil. There are two schools of thought out there in social media, and they're both right, and they need to be integrated. One is you'll see it in the mainstream media. Venezuelan oil is very expensive to refine, and so therefore it's not good. Yes, it's expensive to refine, and no, you're an idiot for saying that. Second one is Venezuelan oil is very energy dense, which is, I think, a layman's way of saying what you just said.
It
It's
is.
very
It's absolutely. It is very energy dense.
right. And,
Yeah.
and so it takes a lot of work to get it out. So you're pulling basically fucking asphalt and tar out of the ground, but you're making but with the proper cracker, which is a heavy or sour crude cracker, you're going to be able to make the bunker fuel. You're going to be able to make shipping fuel, which is, I think, what you're getting at here.
Yes, is exactly what I'm getting.
And most people prefer the heavier crude when you're not dealing with American gasoline or American trucks. And so you're going to get more energy out of it. It's more profitable once you get the cracker set up because it's got the most energy in it. And
Right.
et
And you
cetera,
can
et
blend,
cetera.
remember, you can get all those heavy, you can take all those heavy ends and then reblend them with the lighter ends and make whatever you want. This is why Davos and the British are fucking evil. They ran such a fucking massive war on transportation against a country 3,500 miles in length that made a strategic decision to do its military logistics by road after World War II, the Eisenhower Interstate Highway System. And then they created this fucking climate grift to turn literally the one molecule other than water and oxygen that is life itself, i.e. CO2, and turn it into a fucking poison so that we can't have diesel cars that are more efficient than gasoline cars. We're on gasoline in the United States because diesel was legislated out of existence.
That's right. That's right. And for the precious metals people, that's why palladium got great and platinum didn't, because they
That's
fucking
right.
got rid of diesel and we had to go with palladium converters. I'm with
Yeah,
you on
because
that.
platinum was too expensive, and that and those variety, and now we get into my other area of expertise as a chemist, which is hydrogen generation catalytic metallurgy, because that's what I was fucking doing when I was doing the nickel boron thing. I was looking at nickel boron or nickel cobalt boron
Right.
as a substitute for even palladium or platinum ruthenium as a
Right.
hydrogen generation catalyst. And there was a lot of research there because you can make like a nickel cobalt boron foam and pass it would be less efficient than platinum ruthenium, but it would be 1/20th the cost. And you just replace the
Right.
card, you just replace the if you can
Just
develop
make
it, you
it
can
twice
just
as big of a battery. It's all about the
right.
math.
Well, no, you can just replace. Well, you just replace the you just replace the. No, this is for hydrogen fuel cell technology more than just for the batteries. This is for getting that industry up over the 20%
Oh,
thermal efficiency.
that's what you did work on?
Well, no, that's what I was thinking about.
No, because when I first got into
When I got done finishing the nickel boron and making it into a viable product, which you can literally buy today, every failed zero friggin' AR-15 bolt carry out there, that's my fucking nickel boron. It's my process. Okay, that's the company. I don't have any and the company was run like your typical gold company. Like we went through so many rounds of friggin' of VC capital to get the friggin' thing off the ground. By the time we did, we all got crammed down and nobody made a goddamn dollar. But hey, whatever. I fixed that problem. I did that one. And then after I got that process under control, we started thinking about, well, what can you use this stuff for next?
Right.
And so I, of course, spent 2 years doing like, research department of one, by the way, and in a fucking trailer in Stewart, an industrial warehouse in Stewart, playing around with these ideas while listening to Gold podcast every day too. By the way, this was my 2008 to 2011.
That's
This is
funny.
what I did. This is what I did for 3 years straight.
So you did a lot of fuel cell work.
Well, I thought about it in terms of
No, I'm not challenging you. I'm just because when I started,
no, I'm not telling you that I did that. I was successful.
Right,
I was thinking along those lines of how can I design a version of this coating that would stick basically to like steel wool or stainless steel wool, right? And then be able to use that as a massive surface area to do hydrogen high efficiency over basically overcome the lack of efficiency of a nickel cobalt boron catalyst energetically versus platinum ruthenium with surface area.
All right,
like,
wait, hold on.
It's quantity over quality, basically, right?
No, I get it. It's the reason I'm focusing on that is because when I started in finance, the first thing I traded was silver, and on the floor, I didn't care about silver. All I cared about was derivatives. But then the internet was it was like 1994, and the internet was slow, but it was there, and I was learning everything I could about fuel cells, and I don't know anything about them except that like this is what I would be really bullish on silver for no reason at all. Like I would be the guy going, I'm a derivatives guy, but I happen to know a little bit about silver. Did you know that silver was used in fuel cells in NASA, and eventually all cars are going to have fuel cells? And I would be like a lunatic trying to preach that concept, even though I was like I didn't know anything about it except exactly
way over your skis,
way over my skis there. Like, well, they use it on the moon. It's going to come. Here it comes. It's coming tomorrow. And here we are, fucking 30 years later. They still haven't done it yet.
Well, it's funny. No, what you sounded like there was your typical everyday retail newsletter editor.
Yeah. If I had a newsletter, I would have fucking retired like 10 years ago.
I know. Like, I hate to dance on a guy's grave, but that would have been a story that Ted Butler would have run with. Anything to sell silver. Like, I'm sorry. That's like that. That's just the industry, dudes. Like, and I learned a long time ago that I'm not built for that. And I can't, and I'm no salesman when it comes to that shit where you have to be like really fucking unethical about this. I can only sell, honestly, I'm good at selling what I believe in.
Find an industry that's not regulated and say whatever you want about it, which is what Bitcoin is now.
Yeah. No, the Bitcoiners do the same shuck and dive, and to this day, it's still a lot of the gold guys are still doing that. I just find it like really, really, I just find it really scummy, and I can't do that anymore. So, but let's get back on topic. So, I guess this is, while that's an interesting diversion into my particular crazy and your particular crazy. I know. I'm not. I wasn't blaming anyone.
Providing color on your diversions here, Tom. That's what I'm here for.
So let's get back to this thing, and this is so when you think about Venezuela from that perspective, and now you start thinking about Iran, right? And
I know,
and like all of these things, like I think you can see the geopolitical dismantling of the rest of the foundations of what is the LBMA's
or London General
trade in commodities. So what do you think is going on with Glencore and Rio Tinto?
Yeah, exactly. What do you think is going on? Remember, those of you who don't know, Glencore was started by Mark Rich, and Mark Rich was the guy who was running illegal, fraudulent oil to Iran when we had an embargo on them, and he got labeled a traitor and thrown out of the country, and he can never come back. And then Clinton pardoned him, and now he's basically at the forefront of our fucking geopolitical policy in minerals. It's awesome.
I never actually made that connection. I'm so glad you brought that up because
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, by the way, folks. Oh, by the
It
way,
started with
the
Iran.
British are fucking everywhere, and the Rio Tinto and Glencore are two of the biggest British companies in the in you know
Yeah.
on the FTSE 100. Like, come on,
Yeah.
let's not kid ourselves.
That's right.
So
Oh,
why would they be hooking up? So why would they be hooking up? No, Vince is I think the bigger question. What do you
no, no.
think
I
about
mean, but I think we already know the answer to that. But I wanted to ask you. I wanted to throw something at you, like a hypothetical. You're putting Venezuela and Greenland together, and you're saying
that?
uh, that's geopolitics, Don Roe doctrine, and
Hmm.
what have you, and tying it to energy. And I'm with you on that. And then you're throwing Iran in there, and I see that as well. But you're here's what I'm getting at. I'm not disagreeing with you. Like you're saying,
Hmm.
Iran is also something that makes the UK very nervous, right? So
Hmm.
it's all these things kind of like we're circling. But I haven't looked at it that way, and I'm not saying that your way is wrong, but I'm saying that I almost look at it like we would love to have Iran be destabilized even worse than it is without becoming invaded by us. Meaning, we're no longer the policeman over there. And let's see how China likes dealing with fucking a destabilized Iran next door to them. I mean,
Yeah.
that's going back years to the China-Russia relationship when they weren't friends with each other. When Russia dropped or Soviet Union ended, China was very nervous that they would have a destabilized nuclear power on their border. And now they're
Hmm.
friends, so that's not a problem anymore. So
Right.
how would they handle Iran being like, I don't think we want to rescue Iran. I think we just want to make it more destabilized. And we don't
I think
want a
it's a little bit of both.
revolution. We want a failed
I think it's a
revolution.
little bit. I think it's a little bit of both. I think Iran is almost its own podcast with people who are a little bit more. And don't get me wrong. This is no slight because I know this is not your area of expertise, and I don't want to like hog the mic for very long here. What I'll say is this: Iran is very complicated right now. I think there's at least three factions on the ground in Iran.
Uh-huh.
Um, there's the there's clearly the protesters who are knocking out IRGC buildings. They're going after all these IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guards. That is very much a kind of Devil's Legion British operation. Like the whole
Okay.
axis of resistance. So Venezuela ties
That's the
cutting
color war
off money
concept
to
out of
both
Britain.
the IRGC, Hezbollah, all that. There's also another angle on that, which a lot of those guys were getting, a lot of those like Hamas and all of them, they were all getting Venezuelan passports
Oh yeah. Oh
allow
yeah.
them to move around the world, right? So all that's being cut down. I think the Trump administration, I think they're supporting that. I think they're supporting the Kurds coming in from the north and
Right.
okay, and all of that. At the same time, you have the British wanting to overthrow the government and put in the new boss. Make the old boss same as the new boss. Get rid of the mullahs, move because they're no longer useful anymore. Let's put in our guy. Let's bring Reza Pahlavi back in and then make him our puppet. Okay, reestablish the Shah, which is what they did. And we always get blamed for the Mossadegh and the Shah, but don't kid yourself. Fucking MI6 and probably the French intelligence services were involved in that fucking and all that shit too. Oh, by the way,
The
no,
croissant
actually, I think
kingdom.
the French weren't involved until the Islamic Revolution because remember, Khomeini was in Paris and he flew back into Tehran from Paris.
Right.
By the way, okay. So now, so from that perspective, you're not wrong that we don't that the side benefit of the secondary or tertiary effect of Iran stabilization is that you then take some of their capacity offline and you make it a mess, but it has so many other benefits to get rid of the remnants of the axis of resistance so it can't flare back up again to threaten Israel. And for those people in the audience, I'm making my scare quotes at Vince here. I don't
Right.
believe they ever threaten Israel for any other reason than to stir the fucking ant jar over there. So you get rid of the IRGC, that then has the secondary effect of getting Israel to calm the fuck down and start acting like a normal country again. And
Right.
then
Right.
Bibi can leave the scene and all that other stuff. And this is shit that myself, Dexter White, Halsey, and others have been talking about for years. That is the grand bargain in the Middle East that has been part of and one of the themes of this podcast for the last 7 or 8 years. So all of that is happening. And then there's of course the organic part of the thing on the ground, which is the Iranian people are just tired of all this bullshit. right? And so now the worry is, okay, so how is this going to play out? No one has any fucking clue. And so hopefully when it's all said and done, we can just get Iran to start moving, and it's a very small, I think it's a very low order of probability that it's not going to be a mess for a very long time. So you're going to get your chaos that if China wants to continue to have that oil flow coming out of Iran that they paid for with billions and billions of dollars, right? Same thing with the Russians, then yeah. Um, the country that is strengthened by all of these moves are the Russians, because now the Chinese have got a lot more problems
Right.
than before. It makes the Russians more indispensable to them.
Right.
And if we can get Ukraine solved, then Russia can get out of the war mode and then take all of these for Russia, diamond industries that they've developed in order to fight the war and prepare for the war and everything else. They can now redeploy them for civilian use.
That's right. That's right.
And
We
that's the next
definitely
phase of Russia's development. And this war in Ukraine is literally killing that innovation curve in Russia in the crib. And that's a very British thing.
Wouldn't it be cool if we started buying Russian-made goods instead of Chinese and have the Chinese go, "What the fuck?" It's
Yeah,
not
wouldn't
going to
it be
happen.
nice if? Yeah, no, I mean, good. There's no reason not to. That's clearly what Trump and Putin have talked about in Alaska.
Well, China needs a competitor on the manufacturing stage.
Yeah,
Period. Yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
and we need to be that again. And Russia needs to grow. And this goes back to why does manufacturing only have to be in the United States or in China or go back to the 18th century in your UK and France, like
Right.
all this colonial thinking of we must control the the flow of industrial goods because that's where our political power flows from, so that we can have our big global empire. That mindset comes from people that live on a shitty island in the North Atlantic that has no natural resources other than oil on the North Slope off of
Right.
Scotland. They got no other natural resources in Britain whatsoever, right? So they got to go get them from somebody else, and then they got to control the maritime sea routes, and they got to do this, and they got to do this, and they got to do
Right.
that. And at the end of the day, hey, dude, if it wasn't for the trade winds, we wouldn't even know what England was, because it would be buried under 17 fucking thousand tons of goddamn ice. So it's ridiculous, and I'm so over it. Um, that's what I'm getting at here, and I think that's why you push on the silver trade the way you have.
Yeah.
If you're Trump, I think that's why you push on the gold trade the way you have, and now clearly copper's next, oil is the next thing after that. So
Well, I think you know what I think. This is a little bit tinfoil hat, but it may not be correct in my theory, but it's going to be correct in the outcome, and that is
mhm,
this: China has been debasing against gold or printing money to buy gold, and so they're getting off the dollar and getting on gold. And so as gold goes up, silver goes up eventually because nature starts to assert itself. But here's where it gets interesting. What the US is doing right now is, if you want to just focus on silver and China, I know the US doesn't give a shit about silver the way we wanted them to, but the point is, if you want our silver and we're not going to let you have it, you want our copper, we're not going to let you have it, then you're going to have to print more money to bid it out of our hands, and we're not going to give it to you. When this cycle goes from gold to silver to copper to oil, it's going to be a fucking disaster, because you could have, to
mhm,
make it simple, you could have oil be expensive and gasoline be cheap in the US. We won't have the inflationary problem.
mhm,
Cracks could be lower, and China wouldn't be able to buy Venezuelan oil, or they'd have to buy it in a swap. Or the point is, by taking Venezuela off the market, you make us energy independent. You make Brazil that much more important to China, and you make Russia that much more important to China. So we're weakening them at the fringes by taking natural resource access. I just think China
yeah,
and
yeah,
Russia. Let me put it this way. Let's pretend that I'm a country that's in the Belt and Road Initiative,
okay,
right? Right. And a Latin American country will be easiest to see that. And let's say I'm a country that's going to be in that. Well,
mhm,
it's a fact that China is a. I didn't bring this up in here because I talked about it before, but it's a fact that China. Look, this is a different topic, but it's on topic about China's ulterior motive.
okay, go for it.
China, China's line in the sand is Taiwan. China will do what they have to do to preserve their one nation rule. And in order to do that, they wish to influence other nations to vote their way as a bloc at the UN. Now, they've done that by getting 4 or 5 nations in the last 10 years to swing their way in Latin America. This is going to sound crazy, but it's not, it's accurate. When Trump put out his announcement, the National Security Statement, NSS, I think we called it, which is basically the Monroe Doctrine, China put out within weeks its statement linking Latin America to Taiwan. If you're going to get tough in Latin America, we're going to get tougher in Taiwan. That's basically what they said. So to connect this a little bit easier now, if I'm a BRICS nation and I'm in the Belt and Road Initiative, and I see the U.S. just basically kick China out of Venezuela. That's what they did. They kicked China and Russia out of Venezuela without so much as a word of defense. Why am I going to be allies with China in the Belt and Road Initiative if I'm in Latin America at all? I mean, think about it. We lifted Maduro out of there while the Chinese ambassadors were still there. That's a slap. That's a big slap in the face.
Or I know I agree. It most likely was, or it was part of the negotiated settlement.
It's part of the negotiated settlement. I agree with you. Right, exactly. China knew what we were going to do. Absolutely, we're working with
how about this? We're taking Maduro out. Here's a very Trumpian deal for you. Ready? We're going to kick out London. We're going to get rid of all these nasty people in Iran that you're having to deal with in Iran because you just want the oil from Iran, China, right? So we need to get rid of the IRGC. We need to get rid of the Brits. We need to get rid of the fucking French. We need to stabilize that country. We're going to take Israel off your hands. We're going to clean up the axis of resistance, moving money and drugs and people around the world. We're taking Maduro out because we need him to prove the election fraud and this, that, and everything else for domestic purposes. There's a lot of silver concentrate in the country. You can have it, and you're going to get 1/3, and you're going to get a cut of the oil as we rebuild Venezuela's
get the oil
production.
Back. Yeah, I agree.
But I need you to get the fuck out of the hemisphere and go home.
Yeah,
and we'll take care of it. Now, at the same time, we're also going to force you out of. And China says, and they say, well, that's nice, but what do we get?
You'll get Taiwan on the back end. Relax.
You get Taiwan on the back end after we're done building building Arizona up into hot Taiwan or hot dry Taiwan, right? And the Chinese also agree to stop shipping fentanyl precursors into Venezuela while they're picking up the silver concentrate and the oil and everything else, which then get distributed across Mexico into Canada this is all part of everything. And, there may be a small Canadian pipeline that goes to the coast, but it'll be on America's terms, not on Mark Carney's terms.
Oh, yeah. Where's Canadian oil going to go if not to us? We're not going to give it to China.
Well, here's the thing, Vince, you probably didn't see this, but on the same day that all of this was coming out, on the same night, Daniel Smith of Alberta, Pierre Poilievre, the head of the Conservatives, and David Eby, the leader of British Columbia, were all on point saying the same thing. We've got to get Canadian oil to the British Columbian coast.
Did they really say that?
The pipeline. That was on the same night. They were all on point.
So they want to build a pipeline to British Columbia now?
Well, yeah, they've been wanting to do it for years. To go from northern Alberta across the Rockies into Kitimat at the where Shell was going to put their LNG plant 15 years ago that they had to pull out because of climate change and all that other bullshit. So that area in British Columbia, that story's been there forever, but that's now being resurrected. This is David Eby, Mr. Green New Deal for himself in British Columbia, owned by the Chinese, I might add.
Right. Exactly. That's the whole thing.
Is now saying, now we want a pipeline. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, Mark Carney, you thin-lipped dickhead and head of Flappy Headland, you're going to become the 51st fucking state if you keep this shit up.
Oh, so true, though. British Columbia is colonized by the Chinese, owned by the British, and the British are trying to get a customer and a natural resource at the same time. Yeah. Oh, God.
And blunt the Don Road Doctrine.
We can split. I think we can
on heavy sour oil.
Canada could split.
Canada is going to split. Now, the wild card in that is Danielle Smith of Alberta. Now, she did say in that same, and to be fair, that she did say, we Albertans, we want to send pipelines in every direction.
Right, right.
Like, we want to send them south to the United States. We want to send them
Of
east over to
course.
Quebec. We want to send them out. We just want to sell oil to the world. Well, the best
Yeah,
way for you to do that, Danielle, is to declare independence
yeah.
and let the United States come in and protect your borders from from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police with
Yeah, Canada's
with a couple of
government.
tanks and a couple of packs of Great Pyrenees.
I mean, Canada's got some really. I mean, I don't. I'm just learning about the governmental structure where it's it's really easy to undermine everything, even more than Europe,
Yeah,
apparently. Apparently.
yeah.
So, all right, cool.
It's really funny. The last time we had Matt Arrett on the podcast, and he's somebody I need to get back on the podcast. Myself, Dexter White, and Matt had a great talk, and Dexter kept making the point of like, so Matt, like on the average day, Americans just don't think about Canada as a thing, like in any way, manner, shape, or form. Only in the last year we had to actually think about Canada. Like, and this is coming from somebody like like Dexter. We've had conversations about shit that I'm like, why would you
Right,
know that? Right?
right.
Why would you know? And he knows nothing like you about
Yeah.
how Canada is structured. He just assumed it was like something, quasi like the United States. No, 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 not at all.
Nothing like us at all,
Not at
governmentally.
all.
Oh my
At
God.
all.
I was like, what are they, like the United States, but with the prime minister? Okay. No,
No.
no.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. No, that's
It's
a
a
that's a very bad assumption.
that's what I used to think. I'm like, oh, I guess it's kind of like us, you know?
So Canadians, if you're listening, we're going to come liberate you from this, this British bullshit. And it's coming. I don't know, I'm dude, I'm serious. I say that, like, we've been chatting privately for months, like within a year we're gonna be at war with Canada.
It's another
I
South
mean,
Park.
I mean this sincerely. I have to go back and rewatch the South Park movie again because
And I'm gonna have to go back and watch Super Troopers, right? It's about the border. That's about the border. Right.
love it, love it, excellent, yeah, yeah. So I think we're about done.
I think so. Yeah, at least for
Yeah.
now.
You have anything else that you wanted to talk about before we left?
No, no, just
All right.
happy Valentine's Day. Happy Bachelor Day.
Happy January 6th. Happy Insurrection Day.
That's right.
And you and your MAGA hat. That's hilarious.
That's
Dude.
right. I got my new hats now. Exactly.
Yeah, those are phenomenal. So why don't you tell everybody what
Oh
where
yeah,
they
yeah,
can
yeah.
find you,
Well,
do the thing, do the self promotion thing, and let's get out the door.
oh yeah. So the newsletter, if you don't know, is Goldfix. It's VBL Goldfix. It's a Substack newsletter, and the newsletter sucks. You shouldn't subscribe to it all, but you should buy a hat. Okay? No, I'm just kidding. You should buy a hat if you want to really piss off people because it really looks like it's a MAGA hat. It's a hat about gold. It's a hat about silver. That's a
Mhm.
horrible plug, but you get the idea. All right.
It's an
Next.
excellent plug. They're very cool hats. They're black, and they say "Make AU or AG great again."
Right.
And MAGA, but spelled like you're Irish, and MAGA because if you spell it like you're British because you add an extra U to everything.
That's right. Very good. Very good. Very. This is
So
my
there we
British
go.
made MAGA hat. Exactly. All right.
All right, so that's that.
Excellent.
He's Soren the K on Twitter, on TFL 1728, Patreon/Gold Goats and Guns. You guys know the drill. Like, subscribe, share, do the thing. We'll be back. Be well and keep your stick on the ice.